This is na wicked word. This is na confusion word. Listen to Palibrand. I will be telling you a story about one lady girl. Polly they go to work. Polly they work for bank. Then I enter for motor. The driver they go. Opposite Udi. But the right hand side. Along Gusukudu Road. I see people run. I see people run. Then I ask the driver. The driver waiting they happen. The driver waiting they happen. The driver tell the pali boy. See no day for talk. See no day for talk. We better you take your eye and see. Then I call the driver. The driver wait you. The driver wait you. Driver hold the brake. Then I jump down. Pali waiting I see. Pranu waiting I see. This is na wicked word. This is na confusion word. Listen to Palibrand. I will be telling you a story about one lady girl. Polly they go to work. Polly they work for bank. Then I enter for motor. The driver they go. Opposite Udi. But the right hand side. Along Gusukudu Road. I see people run. I see people run. Then I ask the driver. The driver waiting they happen. The driver waiting they happen. The driver tell the pali boy. See no day for talk. See no day for talk. We better you take your eye and see. Then I call the driver. The driver wait you. The driver wait you. Driver hold the brake. Then I jump down. Pali waiting I see. Pranu waiting I see.
IPOB, one family. Biafrans all over the world, if we want safety and security for our people, then let's continue to support Eastern Security Network. All donations are welcome. No contribution is too small or too large. Do your part, knowing that freedom is in our hands, and together we must all rise to the occasion. Go to our website to make your contribution, www.ipobinUSA.org/donate. And remember that freedom is not free, but together we restore it. Farm by farm, forest by forest, house by house, and street by street.
You must go and listen to Simon Ekpa, who is doing a very fantastic job. Very great job that Simon Ekpa is doing. Very, very, absolutely fantastic job that he's doing. You must listen to him and share his videos accordingly. Very, very important. He is bringing a new dimension to this very awareness that we're making, and you must listen to him. Very, very important.
And when I came out of the vehicle, my driver collapsed. I had to drive the vehicle going to Owerri and coming back to Enugu.
Out of fear?
Yeah, out of fear, he collapsed, he passed away. Well, as soon as he saw people with weapons, that was the end of the news. So when I came out of the vehicle, a man walked and looked at me. He said I should come over here. And I followed him. Another person came out. I said, are you Chief Dan Olas? And I said, yes. He said, God will bless you. I said, why? He said, because we watch you on television, you have been defending our master Nnamdi Kanu. I said, I'll continue to defend him until I die. That he's the summary of all the problems Igbos have in this country. If Nnamdi Kanu is released today, it is more important to me than any Igbo man or anybody being president of Nigeria. Because that boy represents the summary of the oppression, whatever, the shortcomings of our people. A boy who was born only in 1966 took that risk of life to talk for our people. You may not like his methodology, but what he does represents 99% of what Igbos are passing through in this country. But he's in jail. Not many people remember that Nnamdi is in jail. And I pray God that nothing happens to him. Because if anything happens to him, this life, I'll put it on the line again. I pray God that nothing happens to him. So what I'm saying that in that journey, they told me to go that nothing will happen to me. I told them that my driver is already passed away. And they gave me somebody. But I told them, there are a lot of killings going on. They said, oh God, we don't kill anybody. Hausa Fulanis who are killing people. And that is why we are making sure, searching every vehicle to make sure that they don't infiltrate our place, that we don't kill anybody.
Interesting.
And I believe that.
All
so
right.
One of their fellows followed me to Owerri, and I saw what the hope was in, and I came back, dropped him, and I went back to Enugu.
All right, let me come up with, this follow-up question is very important. Having tested the narrative of Chief Dan Wanyan on the process of rebuilding or perhaps changing the dynamics in Imo, and you were accosted on the road by IPOB, what then was your takeaway from that? That conversation, post when you left that, how do you review the safety of people in the South?
How do you cage Nnamdi Kanu? In fact, I want to call that Nnamdi Kanu should be released. A freedom fight agitator who said that, look, he wants liberation for his people. Why are you incarcerating him? Why are you not going to arrest Fulani men? Look at the bomb blast in train blast in Abuja to Kaduna. Up to today, our people are still being kept by these bandits. Where are the security? Where is the president? Where is the security act to go out and rescue these people? Tell me what is happening. It is a shame. Tell me, Igboho, they went after him in the southwest and were able to stop him. At least we're not hearing about Igboho again. Why can't they stop these Fulani men who are terrorizing this country and have made it impossible? They come to Benue and kill. Just in my local government, within the space of 40 people have been killed, more than 40 people. In another local government, over 20 people were killed, and then you want me to keep quiet. They want to intimidate us. I will never be intimidated. At least, let me talk. If at the end nothing happens, and some of you are keeping quiet, keep quiet to your shame. But I want to say that the rest of Nigerians, you people are joking. I raised alarm in 2016 that these things were going to happen. What is it that I have not said? I have said it. If Nigerians want to get out of this, they should arise. Arise television, as your name implies. Arise and let us liberate ourselves. President Buhari and his cohorts.
You must go and listen to Simon Ekpa, who is doing a very fantastic job. Very great job that Simon Ekpa is doing. Very, very, absolutely fantastic job that he's doing. You must listen to him and share his videos accordingly. Very, very important. He is bringing a new dimension to this very awareness that we're making, and you must listen to him. Very, very important.
Good evening, fellow Biafrans all over the world. Good evening, lovers of freedom. Good evening, friends of Biafra people. I am very privileged to be here this evening, this 24th day of October 2022, to address Biafra people as, of course, the spokesperson of Biafra. You are welcome to listen to this groundbreaking broadcast that will be centered on the recent event. The event that is happening targeting at Biafra people. I want you to understand that we will continue to move forward and to move ahead of our enemies. I will want to inform you today that we are officially just 133 days to go. I want to inform you people today that Biafra has moved to the liberation phase. We have moved from the rhetoric to actions, and that we have 133 days to go. The time for rhetorics is over. I want to inform you today, for those of you who have been part of this movement for a while, in case you do not know who you are to fight for freedom. If you don't know what freedom fighting is all about. Freedom fighters are those people who fight for freedom of their country. And of course, many of them sacrifice their life. There are those people because of whom we are able to celebrate our various independence in our various countries today. For you to be part of a country that you celebrate independence means that some people have laid their life for that country to have their independence. So if you find yourself today amongst the IPOB autopilot, it means you are a freedom fighter. And your job is to fight against your colonizers, against the oppressors for your freedom. For those of you who may be residing in one country or the other, and you are against what we are doing, you may need to go and get yourself educated, because the country where you reside today, they celebrate independence. And in case those countries where you reside today celebrate independence, it means they get liberated from some certain forces. They got liberation from some certain oppressors. It means people fought for where you are enjoying today. And that's exactly what this generation, of which you and I, is proud to do the same for Biafra future, for the generation unborn, and for the current generation. That is why no court of law will sentence and jail Mazi Nnamdi Kanu. Mazi Nnamdi Kanu's actions has not violated any known law known by man. Because Nigeria is never a country that respects its own laws and constitution. Today, even when the court in the same Nigeria have acquitted and discharged him, they couldn't allow him to go. Still, they continue to show us and tell us the reason we must fight harder to leave a country like that. The continued incarceration of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu has vindicated most of us. Apart from the criminality of Nigeria, apart from the crime that Nigeria committed by going to a different country to kidnap another citizens and return him to Nigeria, it means that our fight has been vindicated. And it will call for you who have been sidelining or who have been backing down from this movement to rise up. Because what they are doing to Mazi Nnamdi Kanu is a confirmation that we must do everything to leave the contraption by 2023. I want you to know that freedom fighters are people who revolt against the colonizers, oppressors, and stood up for their country and their people. This is exactly what every one of us are doing today for Biafra. Those who have served through the ages have drawn inspiration from the book of Isaiah, when the Lord says, "Whom shall I send? Who shall go for us?" And of course, Mazi Kano, Eastern Security Network, ESN, answering for a long time. They have answered to this call even from the Bible. "Here I am. Lord, send me. Here I am. Send me." Today, Mazi Kano is incarcerated for choosing this job, or maybe the job that God have assigned him to do. And so as many of you who have paid the biggest price, even with your family ones, haven't been killed by the Nigeria terrorist state. We want to inform you today that the time has come. The time to fight Nigeria Fulani terrorists and the repentant Boko Haram in the Nigeria army terrorizing our people is not the time to fight them, is not the aftermath of their attack. We will continue to make this particular thing very clear. The time to attack those coming to kill us in our land is not the aftermath of when they have come to attack us. The best defense is to attack. It is every day. And every day we will continue to fight them. At the same time, we fight for the Biafra liberation. We also take solemn vow to eradicate terrorists, both those in uniform and those of the non-state actors that were imported from the neighboring countries to fight us. To build a Biafra that is freer and more secure is exactly what we are doing today. I want to repeat this again. On this State of the Nation broadcast today, we have moved the Biafra liberation from rhetoric to action. This is a word that you must underline. We have moved from rhetoric to action. I want to lend a voice from the famous word of Kwame Nkrumah in his famous midnight speech. After the Ghana liberated themselves from the oppressors, Kwame Nkrumah in his famous speech said, and I quote, "At long last, battle has ended. It involves battle. Fight for independence and freedom involves battle." Kwame Nkrumah continued in his speech, "And choose, Ghana, your beloved country, is free forever. Our independence is meaningless unless it is linked up with the total liberation of the African continent." And the vision of Kwame Nkrumah for the liberation of African continent is what the Biafra people are doing today. It is a just fight, a just cause, and our right that nobody can take away from us. Whoever wants the best of the Africa continent must look beyond this particular dangerous diversity and sham called Nigeria. As Biafra draw close, with no election, we have just 133 days to go. They are still panicking and wondering what the Biafra people are going to do. Some Biafra people today, we have to take them unaware. with the latest event happening across Nigeria, especially in Biafra territory, following the destruction of trucks laden with goods and services in Biafra land by the Nigeria Boko Haram controlled military in Biafra land. Now it is time for the Biafra people to look into formulating a proper civil defense doctrine under something similar to the Eastern Security Network. Biafrans are cracking their brains, bringing good ideas to the table, what we should do going forward. And to this note, we call on the market unions in Biafra land, starting from Anambra State, because we see that the burning and destruction of trucks is just started. More of these destructions are coming. So this evening, we are calling on the market unions in Biafra land, starting from all the markets in Anambra State down to the lowest in Biafra territory, to begin from today with immediate effect, formulate what we call the Eastern Civil Rescue. They can also give it any name that befit them. The job of these people should be to implement many things, including safeguarding some of the goods. When the enemy come to destroy those trucks, they are going to guide the place, safeguard it against more destructions and looters. It is very imperative to say that such civil defense doctrine would not include bearing of arms, for obvious reasons, being that if they bear arms, they will attract open confrontation from the terrorist government. From the intels that we have at our disposal, more of this attack would come. And we do not want to deploy the Eastern Security Network to an open confrontation at this moment. Because if we do send the Eastern Security Network to safeguard those trucks, it may bring in exactly the aim, the reason why they are now destroying trucks. So for this reason, we are calling on the market union in Biafra land, not just in Biafra land. They have to collaborate with other markets across Nigeria to have a uniform civil defense doctrine that could immediately swing into action when these criminals and terrorists have finished their arson. And I want to inform you this evening that when such civil defense from the unions in the market are formed, they can go into planning and controlling the civil defense organization, disseminating air raid and evacuation warning due to federal military troops reprisal attack that will occur or that could occur after this terrorist government have engaged with our liberation forces or with whomever they normally engaged in gun duel. Our community has been ravaged with flood in addition to the attack coming from the Nigeria military controlled by the Boko Haram, because we know they're controlled by the Boko Haram, as we have seen on different confession and those that have been arrested supplying arms to the Boko Haram. Today, we understand that the ISWAP is now in southern Nigeria. And the United States Embassy have just given warning in its website today, warning of an attack planned attack by the terrorists Boko Haram and ISWAP in Abuja and warned its citizens to be very security conscious. This warning is not just applicable to Abuja alone. It's also happening in Biafra land. And instead of our elite to concentrate on making use of our security men and personnel, the Eastern Security Network, since the Nigeria state security has been compromised and they are now infiltrated by terrorists because of their corruption cases and files, they decide to stay quiet and keep mute. But we believe that the market and the businessmen in our land are not government officials. They engage in businesses. And they also, to this point, have some kind of right to protect their business by themselves, as we have witnessed in different occasions. This particular civil defense that we are proposing today will provide of relief and assistance to an affected area visited by the Nigeria terrorist army when they have gone to, if they go to any village and sack the village and ransack the village, bomb and destroy properties. After they have gone, we are going to mobilize this civil group that will be in a volunteer form to go and swing into action to such village, especially supplying food material and whatever that is needed, whatever that is available, whatever that the Biafra people has made available to this particular village. The report, they also have to engage in a reportage. They have to report the damage and organize first aid and rescue work to the affected people. We are going to make sure that there is going to be an access to ambulance where it is needed, or vehicle to quickly transport seriously wounded people to hospitals. This has not been put in place, and we have recorded a lot of bombardment in Biafra land. The government have not provided this, so it has become imperative that we swing into actions. This civil defense will also rapidly repair minor damages to essential services like water mains, amenities, and critical infrastructures, as well as demolish dangerous structure and remove debris when necessary. I want the elite and the businessmen and women in Biafra to pay attention to this particular State of the Nation address, as it's going to affect you very, very positively if you heed to these particular directives. This civil defense will retain or could be an auxiliary volunteer firefighting crew with access to trailer with pump in every major municipality or town. You must take this very serious. We also will be soliciting for relief materials when this particular civil defense has been set up by market unions. When it is set up, it will be announced and we will solicit for relief material both from home and abroad. This particular defense, civil defense, will be able to have access to warehousing, large buildings like churches, schools, and even open field, in case of emergency, where welfare services like temporary shelter, information and registration can be collected and conducted. We are giving you this ahead of time. There could be more functionalities that can be included as soon as this particular civil defense is implemented. It must not be called civil defense. The market union could go give it a different name because we want some certain things to be handled in a very low key. I want to inform Biafrans today that as Biafra draw closer, the enemies are planning and we need to be ahead of them in order not to clash with the Nigeria Federal Terrorist Authority. It must be kept very simple. Something even private citizen is allowed according to the Nigeria law. The current law allows you to engage in a voluntary services, community services. It doesn't need to be registered. It doesn't need to go through the CAC registration. It does not need to be paid. It does not need to work for money. We need to showcase the evil atrocities perpetuated against Biafra people by state and non-state actors, those likely working under the federal terrorist state. This particular group will also engage in coordinating relief program for Biafra experiencing these kind of atrocities, like I have mentioned earlier. The Eastern Civil Rescue, or as you may call it, can operate as a volunteer apparatus to provide passive and proactive civil persistent situational awareness. I want to inform you today that these teams should be able to appear shortly at the scene of this wanton calamity as evidence in what happened at Onitsha in Anambra State, where many trucks were burnt and destroyed. Many goods were as well destroyed because the Nigeria state understand that Biafra is coming. This is going to happen in other parts of Biafra land. And we are now informing you the best preventive measures that we are going to take. This particular group should at least be part to condone the areas to prevent looting by passerbys and to bullet or register the destruction. This would enable the owners of the trucks and trailers to at least pick up some pieces for a compass and a compensation in the future. So we do not want any Biafra to get hurt, especially your business. Now that we have discovered that Nigeria state are planning something, even those of you who may not support Biafra, you are paying the price. So we have to come up with something very, very positive and in a way to safeguard your goods and services from destruction by the Nigerian army. To achieve this, we must work in conjunction with some form of liaison with the market association and the union, also to ensure the Biafra owners can pick up the pieces. So it is the time for the market union to rise up. Market associations from Biafra land to other parts of Nigeria to wake up, because these goods that are coming to Anambra to other part of Biafra land came from Lagos and other part of Nigeria. It is clear to us that the federal terrorist government aim is to cause disharmony within the Biafra population by inflicting such pain, loss to alienate the civil populace from the liberation forces. It is expected this would be regular occurrence as the date of Biafra restoration draw closer. That's why we have to call you and call your attention. And then, of course, tell you some of the things that you need to do and let us move forward. If there are those that we, the liberation, need to do, we don't need to inform you. We will implement it before you knowing about it. This Eastern Civil Rescue, as you may call it, would not be profit or commercial entity that does not require to be registered in the Nigeria Corporate Affairs Commission. And it also wouldn't be considered as an NGO. Which still needs some legal status. So we don't need to go into that. What you need to do is for the union to put a mechanism within its unions and association and have volunteers who would go into actions immediately such atrocities has been committed by the Nigerian army. After they have deserted the place, they will go and safeguard whatever that remains. Having said this, we now proceed to Igbo Biafra market, especially in Lagos. This evening, we are going to make a special pronouncement. Before this pronouncement, we want to inform you people what is actually going on in Lagos. We are officially announcing to the Nigeria state criminal gangs terrorizing Ndibo in Lagos market that the time is up. People do misunderstood what is Agboro and the Alaye. The Alaye doesn't have a tribe. The Alaye are breed of criminals from Nigeria. Alaye cut across ethnic board. Agboro, they are from Yorubas, they are from Igbo, they are from Hausa, and they cut across ethnic groups. A lot of people, only when you talk about Lagos Agboro, they think always that it has to do with Yoruba as a tribe. That's a very fat lie. I want to correct that narrative today, that Agboro in Lagos, there are Igbos amongst them. Agboro in Lagos, there are Yorubas amongst them. Agboro in Lagos, there are Hausas, even Fulanis amongst them. And that is why we are going to make sure that we fight these criminal gangs that officially is being controlled by a man called Bola Ahmed Tinubu. So when you talk about Agboro in Lagos, we are referring to criminal gangs, certified criminal gangs that cut across ethnic lines. And today, we are giving them the first warning that in as much as Igbo businesses are paying whatever tax officially in their state and their various states in Nigeria, the criminal gangs that is being championed by Tinubu, we are calling on them today that from today going forward, you will not go and attack any Igbo market in Lagos. You must abide by the rules of the market and whatever the chairman of that Igbo market, they anonymously agreed that is going to be binding on them. I want to inform you also that what is happening in Igbo market in Lagos, it is not just about the Igbo. Yorubas are victims. Hausas are victims. Anybody who is in Nigeria and have anything to do either buying or selling in those markets, you are a victim of Tinubu criminal gangs. These criminal organized crime gangs of Tinubu is not only molesting and terrorizing the Igbo people, they also terrorize customers who are not Igbos. So we don't want people to think that this has to do with Igbo. In those markets, there are Yorubas who own shops in those markets, but we are taking it upon ourselves that the fight for the liberation of Biafra people and the way this government sponsor criminals to terrorize and bully the Igbos, we are bringing it to an end. We are ready to fight you in any way you bring it. And we are warning these criminal gangs in Lagos. If you think that you will continue to go and terrorize Igbo market in Lagos from Ladipo to Alaba International Market, what is happening in Alaba International Market today await you. And we are calling on those chairmen of those markets who have not stood up to their responsibility to do that immediately. We say that you can't fight us with criminal gangs. Destroy, molest, while we still pay you tax. We told you people one time ago that this time around, the fight will not be in Nigeria. It will not be in Biafra. The liberation of Biafra will be fought everywhere until the day Biafra will be pronounced an independent nation. We are going to fight within Nigeria, inside Nigeria, until Biafra come. The days you molest, terrorize us in the name of organized criminal gangs called Agboro is over. I want this message to be shared everywhere. The fight is also to liberate Yorubas who have been caged by this criminal syndicate, organized crime gang that Tinubu have installed in Lagos. And all they do is to terrorize, thinking that they are terrorizing the Igbo. Meanwhile, Yorubas also are victims of this criminal gang. They do not represent Yoruba. So from today, if you think that these are Yorubas, you better change your perspective about them. They have Igbos in them. They have Yorubas in them. If you doubt me, you go and make your investigation, which we have done several years. This organized criminal gang comprising of Igbos, Yorubas, Hausa, and other ethnic nationalities. The people usually call them Alaye, as Yorubas. But I'm here to inform you again once more that they are not Yorubas. There is no ethnic group or ethnic nationality. The criminals are criminals, and they are called organized criminal gang. And we have just come to inform them that what is happening in Alaba International Market today will be a child play going forward. As Biafra draw closer, they are going to fight us and fight us everywhere we are. And that's why we are making preparation that we are going to engage any criminal group, be you who, within the Nigeria system. And those of them who will tell you, you want to instigate war against Yoruba and Igbo, I have made it very clear. This has nothing to do with to do the one nation. We are intact. This has nothing to do with Igbo nation. We are intact. It has to do with the criminal gang, organized crime gang, terrorizing Igbo in Lagos, because those markets are predominantly the Igbos. But of course, many number of Yorubas are also victims of these organized criminal gangs that is controlled by Tinubu. We also know how they have molested our people in Ladipo. They say that the Tinubu daughter is the owner of the market, and therefore they continue to chase Igbo away. We also understand that Ladipo International Market or Ladipo Market has been under siege for a while. Tomorrow, Alaba International Market will be locked down. And of course, I trust the leadership. Our voices will be heard. The warning goes to the criminals that we are out to fight and defend our people. This is going to happen everywhere, not just in Lagos. Very soon, we are also heading to Abuja. It is going to happen in Abuja as well. Those who come to steal, destroy, and kill us in our marketplaces, we are going to face them. And after this particular phase of liberation of Biafra, you will know that, yes, indeed, this generation of Biafra is not the kind of generation you are going to toy with. We therefore call on Tinubu to hold his criminal gangs and call them to order, to leave Igbo market alone. Lagos State, if they don't know how to govern a state in a modern society, they should go and get themselves educated and copy from different countries how to collect revenue. The intimidation, the thuggery, the terrorizing of our people in different markets in Nigeria is coming to an end. We know that Biafra is coming and we have a few months to go. But in these few months, we are going to leave a mark that none of these criminals that Nigeria breed will ever forget how we exited Nigeria. From here, from me, I say thank you very much and may God bless Biafra. Also, as we call the release of Mazi Nnamdi Kanu, like I have said earlier, we are going to intensify the activities for Biafra liberation. You know, we gave ultimatum is over, and the Nigeria state will also continue to hear from us. For the last time, may God bless Biafra. May God bless Eastern Security Network. May God bless all the commanders. May God bless all those who have volunteered and contributed to the liberation of Biafra up to this point. May God bless all the aces, all the chiefs who are behind the Biafra struggle. May God bless all of you, both the countries that have shown interest to support Biafra. May God bless you. And may we continue to remain in the path of truth. Remember, freedom fighting is a right. It's a right that you must exercise to the fullest. I call you all to continue to stand on the path of truth. Truth we must follow until the Biafra that we crave and want will be achieved. These 133 days to go must not be something we are going to take for a joke. We wish you see future so that you will not be part of those who will shout, had I known. From here, from me, is good evening.
Since local media organizations commenced publication of the leaked Pandora Papers, former Governor Peter Obi has been hard-pressed to deny the revelations on his secret business dealings overseas. Like similar document leaks before it, the Pandora Papers have helped to expose the concealed fortunes in offshore tax havens and in some cases money laundering by some of the most powerful people in the world. But in a statement, Obi dismissed a report by Premium Times which disclosed that the former governor had concealed a number of offshore businesses and investments when he was at the helm of affairs in Anambra State. According to Musikili Umajid, editor-in-chief of Premium Times, Obi may have violated the Code of Conduct Bureau and Tribunal Act by not declaring his or that of his family's beneficial ownership in the said assets. Majid, who was on the show last week, added that the former governor flouted the Nigerian constitution by operating a foreign bank account while in office and may have concealed his offshore investments to avoid tax. Well, in our time-honored tradition of giving all sides a right of reply, we're now being joined by Peter Obi, former Anambra State governor, to give us his side of the story on the allegations made against him by Premium Times. Good morning, Mr. Obi, and thank you for coming on the morning show.
Good morning for inviting me, and good morning to the viewers.
Well, the obvious question to ask is, are you guilty as charged? Because you were named in the latest scandal, Pandora Papers, as one of those involved in setting up a secret company for the purpose of money laundering, illegal purchase of properties overseas, while you were in office as governor of Anambra State.
Well, thank you. Number one is that I'm not guilty. Charged. Trust company is a legitimate vehicle used everywhere globally for investment, savings, and estate planning purposes. It's allowed by law everywhere. In my particular case and that of my family, it was done on very valuable advice of our then bankers, Lloyds TSB. This is what they did to all their international clients who operated at the time I lived in the UK. They will help you to see that you formulate a trust company offshore, and that is what we did. This company was never used to launder money before, during, and after till date. So it wasn't used anytime I was in office for anything. Two, it was never used to buy property before I went into office, during the time I was in office, and after the time I was in office. It was strictly a trust company that savings and family planning that was strictly used to support our borrowings, which we even invested in this country. And they are facts, they're not things that you can, that's it.
Right.
So,
well, according to confidential information, you have about $500 million squirreled away in the British Virgin Islands and in Switzerland. Can this amount be described as legitimate earnings?
well, I wish, I don't think I would even be here if I had that type of money. But let me tell you, when people banding money or talk about money and size of money here, it's because we're not a productive country. People don't work for their money. So we find it difficult to understand value of money. And I'll take time to explain this to you. Globally today, the world population is 7,750,000,000, out of which only 37.5 million is worth $1 million. That is 0.05%. Only 3 million, which is 0.04%, is worth 10 million. And only 300,000 is worth $25 million, which is 0.004%. So when people call these figures, it's alarming because of the fact that we live in a country where people make money they don't need and everything. If you go anywhere near this company being mentioned, his accounts, everything globally, and find more than about 3% of the value you mentioned now. 3%, I'm talking about $15 million, out of which 70% is supporting a loan of investment in this country, then confiscate everything. Even confiscate everything I have in my life. If you go to this, you know what $500 million is? $500 billion today in Nigeria is almost 300 billion naira. My entire earning while I was governor, Anambra State received, was under 500 billion, out of which I say 15%, 75 billion. That is, you're talking about, I don't know where people call figures here, and that's why people try to make money they don't need. What do you need that type of money for? Why do you have to do that? The money, the trust company is there. And one of the challenges I'm going to throw today is to ask you and some other people to select 1, 2, 3, 4 persons that have foot their bill to follow the trail of this company to where it is today. And see the formation, who gave the advice, how we came to it and everything. Please, there's nothing, you wouldn't even find 5% of that, of what the figure you called anywhere. If I have $500 million, well, I don't know what I will be doing. You would have seen me building, you know how many schools and institutions I support? I've been building universities all over the place.
Let's talk about Next International UK. They said you didn't resign as the director, of Next, and 14 months after you became the governor, you were still director of Next. Tell us about this Next International company.
Let me tell you. Let me start. Next International we had a company in Nigeria called Next International Nigeria Limited. It's an offshoot of Next International Nigeria. That was Next International UK, which I run as managing director and everything. This company is a UK-based company. It's a brand management company that we're representative of companies like Heinz, a number of multinational companies in West Africa, and I was the CEO. And it's good that I tell you the background of how I became governor. I was living in the UK, operating in Nigeria. I declared the governor and winner of the election on Thursday, 16th of March, 2006. On that day, I was presiding over Fidelity Bank board meeting as the chairman. And I have members, you can ask this. One of the members is somebody you value a lot, Bismarck Rwani was a member of the board. Leighton Dubiskama was a member of the board. Jara Magoro was a former Ondo chairman, was a member of I was the chairman. I was presiding over a board meeting, and suddenly Leighton Dubiskama said, "Stop, Mr. Chairman." I said, "What?" He said, "You've been declared the governor of Anambra State." That was on a board meeting. And that was how the meeting stopped. From there, I called and they said, "You have to proceed to Abuja to meet for INEC to give you certificate of return." So I left board meeting, went to the airport, got the next flight, went to Abuja. By 6 p.m. that day, they gave me certificate of return. And I said to them, I want to go back to Lagos the next day to bring my clothes, just clothes, to bring a few things so I can go to Oka for this way. They said, no, that please, you need to proceed to Oka immediately because the then governor, Dr. Chris Ngige, because of his circumstances, I've left the country. Immediately I was declared, he lost his immunity, so he left through the borders and left out of the country. So there was no government in Anambra State. So that's how the next morning I moved to Oka. Arrived Oka, just took a flight to Enugu, arrived Oka. As I arrived Oka, they took me to the chief judge in a small space. He said, "These are forms for you to fill to declare your assets." I filled that form about 30 minutes, whatever I could remember. The next thing I was sworn in as governor. When I finished the swearing in, I asked, "Okay, so I'm not sworn in. Where does the governor live?" They say, because that time, the governor's lodge was burnt down, the office. I said, "Where is the governor? Does the governor live?" They said, "There's no house." "Where is his office?" "There's no office." So what do I do? Any paper, anything? Nothing. I managed to get across to somebody who got across to Chris, who said, there's nothing. So I moved to my village. And that was where I stayed there. That was the government. From there, I phoned every company. Let me start with Next International UK. Next International UK, just to show you, I brought this and I'll keep it with you people. Next International UK is a company that is, as at that date, I'm telling you, received overdraft from Lloyds Bank of over $7 million. This is a trading company. As at that day, have over 200 containers on the sea and everything. And I've just been announced governor, and here I'm running a company. So the only thing I could do is to phone my wife and said, because she works with me, everybody knows in the company, I'm the CEO, she's my deputy with other. I said, you take charge, I will never come to London again, see what has happened to me. And I was chairman and director of about 11 companies, even in Nigeria. I phoned all of them, said I've resigned. From that day that I went to Oka until I was impeached in November, I never left Oka. Not one day. I resigned. And I wonder what, even at times, I even wonder, why is there an issue 15 years after I was supposed to resign?
So did you
resign
the needful
completely?
From Next? And did you also put Next in your form? Did you, the asset declaration form, did you declare Next in there and all?
When they talk about the declaration of forms, that what I just saw that, again I said, what I declared, when you talk about declaration, I just told you a story now that this company is owned by Next Nigeria. Because at times they say, oh, you didn't declare. I said, no, I didn't declare one. Assets with people. I didn't declare some assets because those assets have been declared somewhere. So if I declare Next Nigeria that I own 5%, I don't have to declare another interest that Next Nigeria owns. Just like they want to say, and I didn't declare something because they were subject of things that were bought from borrowed money. If you borrow money from me and buy this suit, when they ask the owner, you have to put remark that you're owing somebody because it's not your suit. I can come to collect it tomorrow. So what I tell people is that I declare things that belong to Mr. Peter Obi. Not even Peter Obi and wife and children. No, because I can tell you, I don't know how other people operate. In my house, my wife will always remind me that this thing belongs to me. It's not your own, no. And my children will do it with emphasis. My daughter will even do it with emphasis. Daddy, we agreed that this thing is this. So if you want to, let me tell you, when I said I want to go and do politics, it's not the first thing they will ask me. Daddy, I hope that what you're using to do use your politics is your own money. Don't bring us into it. We are not part of it. So I don't go and decide declaring things that does not belong to you. You declare things. The purpose of assets is to declare. And most of the assets that are declared have been declared somewhere. So you can't declare a company. For example, I own shares in a bank with my name. I declared it. I didn't declare the one, say, Next International owns, because I've already declared my interest in Next International. It will amount to double declaration.
Well, except that, someone would say in the assets declaration form, you're also required to state the assets that you jointly own, either with your spouse or, that belong to your children. But the question has been that when you set up a trust or a company overseas, do you agree with those who have been alleging that this is strictly for the purpose of tax evasion, to avoid tax due to the Nigerian government?
Ruben, I can tell you, I'm a faithful citizen of anywhere I've passed through. I cannot evade tax. It will never happen. Every investment I've done globally is legitimate and pays tax. I just shown a paper and said I live here. If you're a black man in London, you're a suspect. If you're in Nigeria, you're a double suspect. For me to live in the UK, where my bank can write here and say his account has been conducted in an impeccable manner and gives me over $7 million overdraft. Ruben, that's all. I pay my taxes. If I earn anything in the UK, I pay the UK government their tax. I own a property in London. I pay tax. I cannot come and pay property tax in Nigeria for the property I own in the UK. Money I earn here, I pay tax. Don't forget that I was subject to probe of tax about 2 years ago in Anambra State. And I showed evidence that in the past 20 years, I've consistently paid my tax and I've never paid less than 50 million naira annually. So I pay my tax. There's no issue. It's because maybe like they expected when they're talking about $500 million and they think it's about tax. No, the tax are duly paid for investment incomes as expected. I cannot evade tax.
So what about the specific allegation? You've talked about your resignation from Next International. You've talked about your assets declaration. But the specific allegation that you broke the law, that you flouted the provisions of the Code of Conduct Bureau and Tribunal Act and flouted the Constitution by having foreign accounts.
No,
Can you address that?
I never did. I didn't broke the law. Simple. Everything I did was within the line, and I've told you also the circumstances in which I became governor. Everything I did was within the law, and I've told you the circumstances in which I became governor as well. Notwithstanding, even that there was never a time anybody said to me, Peter, come. The reason why you see election, when you have election, it takes 3 months for swearing in, is to be able to have orientation. Notwithstanding that I never had any orientation, nobody said to me, you have to do this, you have to do this. But by my own commitment to do the right things, I tried to stay within the law. And I can tell you, I was within the law. What you're seeing now is the situation where, we've looked for everything, even we can't find anything against this man, since he's been, since he's going about preaching about saving, preaching about this, let's just throw anything on him. What I was preaching about saving is what I did. I'm always happy when I see Ruben here, because Ruben was part of a government that I participated. The very first day I became governor, the first thing I discussed in my ESCO with my executives is that we must save money. They came up and said, why? I said, listen, as a father, I save money for my children. And they know. So I must save money for the children of Anambra State. Even when I was impeached, go and read my impeachment notice. One of the third point of why I was impeached is saving money without authority of the House. I came back from that impeachment. I said, we must continue saving. As long as I'm here, whenever we receive our FAC allocation, the first thing we do is remove money for pension, remove money for gratuity, remove saving, pay salary, then the rest we can work with. If you don't do it, I'm not part of it. And this you can see everywhere. If you go to Ngozi Wala's book, which you can see, page 61, he showed it there that all the governors, all of us were in a meeting, refused when he was talking about saving. And he said that only Peter Obi, who argued for saving, was shouted down by his colleagues. It was only Lily Moke that supported me. If you call Sheguna Aganga, when he was doing sovereign wealth fund, he would tell you, he's in his own notes, that only Peter Obi who supported sovereign wealth fund to be set up and savings. If I have opportunity of being part of Nigeria at the helm, the first law I will take, the first executive bill I will take to the House is that Nigeria must save money. We must have at least 5 to 10% of our resources from oil, from mineral resources, from natural resources, saved for future generation. Because the expiring assets, every country is doing savings. That's why we have a problem because we don't save. You must save money. You must bequeath your children a better place than you found it. And that includes saving for them. I save for my family, and they know.
Okay. So just confirm for me again, as way of housekeeping, the $500 million is a phantom amount.
No, I said
and if you have 1/3 of that, like you said.
No, I didn't say 1/3. I said if you go there and find more than 3%, which
more than 3%.
About 3%, which is about $15 million.
Okay.
If I bequeath my children $500 million, I've cost them.
Okay.
There's money you bequeath people, you cost them.
Okay.
You know, you bequeath them what is manageable and everything, so they can start their life.
Okay, so $15 million.
I said,
is the number.
If you have something, if you see anything more than that, confiscate what I have overseas and locally here.
Okay, so $15 million. But you always question, President Muhammadu Buhari's borrowing, and he said in this last budget statement that we pretty much spent our way out of a recession. What can you say about that? Well,
when people said former minister said that they spend their way out of recession, the first thing you do when you have a recession is very simple. You have to cut your costs. You cannot continue to live the same life we lived when things were normal and when you were, of course, not borrowing, when you're borrowing. What I'm talking about borrow? Okay, you spent your way out of recession. What did you achieve? Before recession, a bag of rice, for example, is about 12,000 naira. We went into recession, and we are not out of recession, it's 30. Leave all this economics, let's deal with the reality of the ground. Things have changed. So when you say we have come out of recession, what are we? What I said is that if you must borrow when you're in recession to come out, you have to throw the money to critical areas that not just pull you out of recession, but can grow your economy and make it work. The borrowing was thrown away. Can they tell us how it was spent and come out of recession? We're not America, where people can just borrow money to consume, and because it's a developed economy. This is an economy that requires critical investment in critical areas, and money were borrowed and for consumption.
Okay, well, I get the point that you've made about borrowing. You've been very consistent. But on that same occasion, President Muhammadu Buhari said the problem is not debt, that what Nigeria has is a revenue problem, and that his administration is committed to ensuring a revenue to GDP ratio of 15%. Do you think that that is achievable?
Well, it's not achievable.
It's not?
It's not achievable. Not at all. Not even in the next 5 years. I can tell you that. It's not achievable. It's very simple. Ruben, we have a problem, a debt problem, not revenue problem. We have a debt problem, not revenue problem. Don't look at your debt to GDP. Look at your revenue to your debt to your revenue. That is what you should compare. Why do I say it's not achievable in the 5 years? There's a simple link between pulling people out of poverty and increasing your revenue. It's a simple thing. We're talking about tax revenue everywhere in the world. You cannot have 98 million people in poverty, and you're talking about revenue. Who is going to pay you the tax? Where are you going? If you look at, let me give you an example of countries, comparable countries of our size. Philippines today is revenue to GDP of 14.1%. Their unemployment rate is 4%. Vietnam is about 12% to GDP. The unemployment is 6. Bangladesh is 9%. The unemployment is 6. I can go on and show you countries like that. Indonesia, the unemployment is 5. Every country that have achieved, and this is about 9-10%. And look at the unemployment, it's below 10. You have unemployment today, unemployment and underemployment of almost 50%, which will even be more when you check that you have 98 million people. The working population of Nigeria is 120 million. out of which only 55 is working. So if you want to double this revenue, by the time you put 30 million, half of those that are here, you double the revenue. But if they stay there, you cannot double the revenue. It's a simple thing. Ruben, if you're not working, will you pay tax? You're paying tax because you have a job. 3 of you have a job. That's why you can pay tax. In my own village, I can tell you, my village, 70% of people don't pay tax. They actually live off begging. So how would they pay tax? So it's simple. The more you put people out of poverty, the more your revenue increases. Once the economy is growing, the faster the economy, the more you can create revenue for development. That's what happened. And that's why I said borrowing is not a problem. You can borrow money, but what you use it for? An issue of savings, you can even save when you're borrowing. No way. With a 1 trillion sovereign wealth fund, $1 trillion, their debt to GDP is 34. They're borrowing, they're saving. Japan, with 200 and something debt to GDP, is saving. So if we organize ourselves properly, we can do all these things, pull people out of, create more revenue, invest it properly, and that's it.
Right. I was actually looking to quote exactly what the Minister of Finance, Budget and Planning said about the 2022 budget as presented. And she said personal costs, debt service and capital expenditure account for 85% of the 2022 budget, and there's little scope for cuts in the medium term. What's your response to that?
Well, you know, I don't like talking directly about their budget and everything. You know, first is that you have a budget that is skewed towards personal cost, current expenditure. It shouldn't be for a developing economy. You know, and then you talk about borrowing. We've now agreed that our borrowing is going to be about 6 trillion, which you're looking at about 30-something% of. I can tell you it will be worse. In that budget, you see where they even made a provision for putting money into the sinking fund. This year, unless it started yesterday, they've not put any penny into the sinking fund. And they're borrowing more. And they say they're borrowing for infrastructure. And show us, be specific. Specific. Egypt borrowed money to fund Siemens power. Specific. So we know this money we are borrowing, we are going to give it Siemens because we want them to generate ABC and this. So we know what, or we are giving to those who are generating power so that if we give it to them, they will do this, they will do this. But don't make it look as if what is talking, I don't know, you know, the minister of government. That's all I can say. I just know that things are not the right way.
But they also say GDP numbers will increase. Any possibility of that based on the fact that when you look at the parameters around? And I also want to ask you about the benchmarks, you know, for this budget. What's your take on the benchmark?
The benchmark is reasonable. But what I wanted to say about benchmark is where Nigeria was signed and said, anytime we are above our benchmark, anything we earn goes to sovereign wealth fund. That's so serious. This idea of having SS crude account and lasting this long is what I found very, very annoying. Why can't we have a law that said we must save this amount? Whatever we earn from oil, this amount, this is an asset that is depreciating and diminishing. And one day it will end. Why don't we just have an amount that we throw into, even if we, and have our sinking fund protected, because this is how we're going to pay this loan. So if you say to me, like the GDP is going to, this GDP thing is there, you can make anything of it. I will know that the GDP is growing. The president promised to pull 100 million in 10 years out of poverty. That's 10 million a year. They haven't done, in the past 6 years, they've thrown more people into poverty. So nobody was pulled out. And now 1 year to go, he said he will put 100 in 10 years. I can tell you, What I want to see is the GDP that will pull 1 million people out of poverty in the next 1 year. Let's see people who have come out of poverty. Let's show the critical areas you're investing this money and how it is going to happen and everything. That is what is important.
Well, we've been talking about the Pandora Papers, the economy, budget, and all of that. Let's talk about your state, Anambra, where in the last week or so there have been talks about the likelihood of a state of emergency being declared in Anambra State. With the Attorney General of the Federation saying one thing, the governor of the state saying another thing, and everyone expressing anxiety about whether or not the gubernatorial election of Anambra State, scheduled for November 6th, will be able to hold, particularly as INEC itself is asking for security to be able to conduct that election.
Well,
a major stakeholder.
Let me first tell you that people
Yes.
in government, when they make statements, should always, first of all, evaluate and think about the implication of their statement to the overall well-being of the country. I've said it, and what it is people don't know that the greatest contributor to GDP growth is intangible assets, which is security, law and order, and even behavior and statements of the leaders. Their statement can actually hurt the economy and hurt the place. So they should always ensure that their words and their statements are something that have gone through scrutiny. Saying that you have to declare state of emergency in Anambra State because of insecurity should actually mean that you need to declare state of emergency in Nigeria. Because if you want to declare state of emergency in Anambra because of insecurity, you have to declare state of emergency in Nigeria because of insecurity. So that statement from the Attorney General shouldn't be. Also, he is the Attorney General of the Federation, not Attorney General of federal government or APC. There's positions you are now working for government. Ruben, when you see me come to Economic Council and everything, or come to Economic Advisory Council, I don't come there as Peter Obi, who is governor of Anambra State. I come as one of those who are leading Nigeria, who is leading one of the sub-nationals that will contribute in building a better Nigeria. And that's how I speak. You don't go and speak. It's the Attorney General of the Federation, not of federal government, not of APC. Also, I listened to the comments from my governor, who said he did not attend meeting because his colleagues are sponsoring those who are coming to cause problem or kill people in Anambra State. I think that is the reason why he should have gone to the meeting, where there was a gathering of those people, plus all the leadership of the Southeast, and look in their face and said, you are the problem. All these things that people will come and grandstand in TV should stop. And I listened to an insensitive statement from him saying that just because 15 people died, those 15 people includes 2 professors of medicine. No. I went to collect Chika Akunyele's calls from the police. And there I saw 3 headless people. We have a country. We should be sensitive to one person dying as we are to 20. I said every day, when people ask me about 2023, I said, people are dying in the north every day. Every day I get up, Ruben, I pray for this country and say, God, whatever offense, forgive us. What is happening in the north should be of worry to me as it is to anybody, even when I'm not from there. So Federal government should not talk about state of emergency. Failure of security in Anambra State is their failure because they are in charge of security. Unless they are saying they are going to declare state of emergency on the country. And everybody knows that. They have to work. All we are asking in Anambra is let's have a free and fair election. That's all. One person will be governor. I was governor. Was elected twice there. Was the only first person. I never one day, in fact, I didn't know that Anambra would ever get at this stage.
Nobody saw that coming, but as we only have a few minutes left, what are your thoughts on the same topic on November 6th, the election? And, you know, there's a lot of opinions flying around. Will the elections hold? Will they not hold? Where do you stand on this issue?
For me, the elections must hold. There's no reason why the elections won't be, you know. Yes, there's issues of problems of insecurity, which is now being addressed and under control. If the government wants it to happen, they can put it under control and be able to. And I've already called collectively. That's why I said that my governor would have attended that meeting and resolve it with his own colleagues in the side. You don't start, instead of start dividing it, let us go there and say, these people is coming your own. This is when I was governor, I had a notorious criminal coming from Enugu to operate in Anambra State. I had a notorious criminal coming from Abia to operate in Anambra State. One from Enugu, we call it Gwekelo. This one, they call it Osikanko from Omaya. Because we were working together, I was able to tell me and the new governor agreed. We know the days this man calls for operation with his gang. And we decided on that day, once he entered Anambra State, they blocked Enugu. I blocked this place. And police, as they were chasing him, he had to abandon his cars and everything. I wanted to swim across the stream, and he was caught. And that was the end of him. Same thing happened with the one from Umaya. The one from Umaya kidnapped this innocent motor. He kidnapped the people that came to work for innocent. We followed him to Umaya with cooperation of the government of Abia State. That was the end of it. Even an Anambra person who lived in Omaya, who was operating in Anambra, he would come and operate and go back to Omaya, called Ofaku. It was, so you go and sit down with your colleagues, look in their face and say, hey, I have a problem. This is coming from your state. Then we can, this is how, then they resolve it. The election should go on. Let them use it even as an experiment to do free and fair election, by even transmitting the result electronically. It is all this rigging that is causing problems. If you ask our people to come out, they vote for the person they want, and that's it.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, okay. Go ahead.
Let's talk about the PDP matters now. A couple of governors came together and they said they unanimously had a vote and they went one way, that the leadership of the party the chairmanship of the party should go to the north, and invariably what it means is the fact that the presidential ticket will be zoned to the south. But that has been meeting a lot of reactions. Some people are saying that's not cast in stone and the likes. And Chief Raymond Dokpesi, a PDP stalwart, came out yesterday and said that the presidential ticket should be zoned to the north. What's your reaction to statements like that?
Well, you know, the highest body of the party, the National Executive Council, have decided from my own, I didn't attend personally, but from what I heard and from what I got as the feedback, that they decided the chairmanship should go to the north, and that the presidential ticket should be open to everybody. And that is their position. And that is the position of the party. Everybody has to obey it. I'm an obedient party person. Whatever the party decides, we will. So my commitment is that If they say it's by zoning, please, any zone where it is zoned, let's go and find competent person. There must be so. Every zone in this country have competent person that can do the work. Let's find competent person that have capacity, that is visionary enough to pull this country in the right direction. Not to pull it out for the problem, because the problem is enormous now that you can't pull it out. Is to let us start moving in the right direction. Where we're going now, our compass now is pointing we're moving in the wrong direction. Not that anybody, it's not this government, it's not anybody, it's that we have done the wrong things over the years. So we need to see people who are committed to pulling this country in the right direction, who understands that now we don't have money, we don't have to be doing all sorts of things, we need to cut our costs, we need to do this and everything. Competent person is critical, it is important. If they say it's open, again, let all those who will say, or who say they want to be president, come out so we can actually start evaluating them. What you see now is that everybody is keeping quiet. I can tell you one of the most, something somebody told me years back, that is, not even years back, about a year ago. He said to me, Peter, let me tell you, in this country, they usually don't allow somebody who comes out and talk to be anything, because you can be talking. And he gave me an example. Now this man was talking too much. They brought this man. This man was talking, they brought this man. And I said, that's the problem. Because we never heard from this man. He just come from the blues. We left Ruben, whom we know where he stands. And all of a sudden, we go and take Ruben's brother, John and Betty, we never heard from. And he comes and starts at that stage. He didn't promise you anything. He didn't say anything. Because we're avoiding Ruben, whom we know he stands. And people say, oh, Peter, your problem in Anambra State is that people suffered when you were there. That's why everybody is scared that if you get to anywhere, nobody will eat anything. I said, what do you mean? Weren't people being paid salary? Weren't people eating and everything? I said, people were eating. Those who suffered, or those who wanted to take public money for free, we didn't have money to offer anybody for free. That's why we saved. He said, oh, but the one you saved. I said, I saved it because it belonged to the people of Anambra State.
Since you know how to save, what about you? Why are you not putting your heart in the ring for this presidential election?
No, well, let's see.
Since you can run a company that, like you said, good overdraft, you run it successfully, and you always say Nigeria needs a business leader to be able to put things together and someone that understands. Why is it not time for you to...
Well, we're waiting to see what the party decides.
Okay, so you'll be running once the party
decides. When they decide, it is when they decide, and we'll make up our mind and say, we're going to go this direction or this direction. You don't go before the party. I'm a party man. I want to see what the party wants to do. But for me, I will never be part. I said, 2023 is critical. This country is collapsing. Economically. All these things we are saying, all these are problems, you see. It's an economic problem. If you start pulling people out of poverty, you start reducing all this criminality that you're seeing today. It's happened everywhere, from Brazil to Philippines to Bangladesh to Indonesia. The more they pull people out of poverty to Vietnam, and you see it growing. You can't throw people into poverty and think you can go home and sleep. It's simple.
Well, Mr. B, it appears as if this conversation is generating a lot of interest out there. People have been sending in observations and questions. Now, this person says, look, we shouldn't close the Pandora's box yet. So maybe we'll go back to the Pandora Papers and reopen it. And he's asking that, look, he knows you more as an economist, analyzing the economy, at various fora. That what business exactly do you do that you can afford to keep maybe $15 million in an offshore account? Well, I know what you do, but you never know.
He asked a good question. I tell the person, let me tell you, Ruben, when I came here, I brought a few things that ordinary is personal to me. I lived in England when they introduced American Express card. platinum card. I was even in England when they introduced it. And they said 5,000 people will get it. Those 5,000 people, their card showed charter member. This is my own. Showed their charter member. Member since 1987.
Can somebody use it on your behalf?
So, I lived in England, Ruben.
I know you don't need to look at it.
Ruben, I lived in England when American Express introduced black card. And they said 1,000 persons will be issued with this card. I have it here, it's so charter member. To tell you my experience in this card, they told me to go and collect this card somewhere in Sloane Street around Harrods. I got there. When I came out from the station, the man who was in the office where I was going to collect it asked me, "Who are you?" And I introduced myself. He said, "How did you come?" I said, "I came from Knightsbridge underground." He said, "Well, underground?" I said, "Yes." "Who are you?" I called my name. He said, "We don't have any name or card like that here." So I left to go back to the station because what I use in England, everybody knows is underground. I was going back to the station when my bank manager called me and said, "Peter, go back there. I think they found the card." What shocked me is, how can this man come from underground to collect this card that everybody have come to collect Rolls Royce on this one? Ruben had a viable business. If anything, politics, I'm not regretting, because everywhere I found myself is grace of God. That's why when I went into the same politics, when people say this person is doing this, I say, listen, I came here by grace of God, I won't abuse it. Otherwise, if there's anything to regret in my life, it's going into politics, because it made me poorer. But however, I'm glad that God allowed me to also make a success of it.
Mr. B,
so
maybe you have to be
the
more
business
specific.
I'm doing.
What kind of business?
I'm telling
How
you,
did you make the money?
I'm telling you now, the business I'm doing, that I was a brand and market management company that I run. I had a Heinz franchise. You can go and look. I was the sole importer of Heinz salad cream, baked beans. Just to give you an example of one company. South African breweries, who's the international breweries, I was their sole engineer. I can go on and on. I was working, bringing the Ovaltine for Novartis with another company. When I can go on and everything. In fact, to tell you what the company is, the company I was involved before, when I left and my brother took it over and paid me off, sort of became Next Cash and Carry that you see in Abuja and Port Harcourt now. So the same company. I was a trader. Everybody knows I was a very big trader. Even chairman will tell you. Chairman knew I used to import wine and used to send him champagne. He will tell you that when he was in Surrey, when all of us were still at the struggling stage. So I had a viable business, but went into banking. So if the person wants to know, I was sitting on board of 3 banks, could be chairman one before I became governor. So that is also a business.
So you have shares in those banks too?
Major shares.
Major shares in those banks?
Yes.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Peter Obi, for joining us this morning. I'm sure that this conversation will still generate more conversations out there. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
The territory of the central market, as well as in other neighborhoods. The infrastructure of the city and residential buildings were damaged, and citizens of the city were also mortally wounded. This information will be entered into a single registry of pre-trial investigations, which will add to the already extensive list of crimes that will be submitted to the Hague Tribunal.
Russia's parliament has approved the first stage of laws that would allow Moscow to move to a war economy. Businesses could be forced to supply the military with goods and employees told to work overtime to support their invasion of Ukraine. Meanwhile, the Russian President Vladimir Putin has ordered his forces to push ahead with their offensive in eastern Ukraine after seizing control of the entire Luhansk region. It follows their capture of Lysychansk at the weekend, the final stronghold in the area after weeks of heavy shelling. It comes as the Ukrainian Air Force claimed they shot down 6 Russian sea-based cruise missiles.
In the Donetsk direction, the enemy's main efforts are focused on establishing control over the territory of the Luhansk region within the administrative borders.
The enemy is taking measures to restore the transport infrastructure in the rear areas. In the Kramatorsk direction, the occupiers shelled the areas of Bilohorivka and Verkhnokamiansk with barrel artillery. A missile and airstrike was carried out near Slavyansk and Zvanivka. In the direction of Bakhmut, the enemy is conducting assaults in the direction of the settlement of Novolyahansk. The fighting continues.
The situation on the front has not seen any substantial changes in the past 24 hours. The enemy continues to terrorize border areas of the Sumy region, the city of Kharkiv and its region, the Donbass. The Ukrainian armed forces responding, pressuring and destroying the offensive potential of the occupiers. We have to break them. It is a difficult task that requires time and superhuman efforts. But we have no alternative.
And President Zelensky says Kiev is working directly with the UN and Turkey to guarantee the security of grain exports from Ukraine. Ukrainian officials say Turkey has now seized what they say is tons of stolen grain on board a Russian-flagged cargo ship. The grain was shipped from the port of Bernyansk, which is now under Russian control.
NATO has signed off on the accession protocols for Sweden and Finland. The Nordic countries have been neutral for decades, but pushed full membership after Russia invaded Ukraine. NATO leaders made the decision to fast-track the process at their summit in Madrid last week.
This is an historic day for Finland, for Sweden, for NATO, and for Euro-Atlantic security.
In this document and in this memorandum, we have actually addressed all those concerns that also Turkey had raised, including the terrorism, the PKK issue and so forth, and all those steps that are necessary to be taken are mentioned in the memorandum. So I'm very much thinking that based on that cooperation that we agreed, we can go forward and also hopefully please.
Well, AP reporter Kieran McKillen, who is in Lviv, has an analysis of the latest developments around the conflict in Ukraine.
We did hear from Vadim Liak today, the mayor. We now know that the death toll is 2 and 7 people injured after a rocket attack on a busy market this morning in the city of Slavyansk. We understand that 144 people left the city today as he urged people to get out. He was telling them to do this yesterday as well. Among those 144, Neil, are 20 children. And we also know that yesterday from Vadim Liak that 40 houses were put on fire by this bombardment, this constant shelling. This is the worst shelling the city has experienced since 2014. And it's interesting to note about Slavyansk, it was one of the first places that the Russians and those separatists from the Donetsk People's Republic occupied in the very early days of that first Russian incursion back in 2014. They managed to rout those forces at that time. So this would be a very symbolic city for the Russians and for the Donetsk separatists to take. But there's a couple of assessments coming through now about just how well supplied Russia is and what they lost trying to take the Luhansk. We know that last Sunday there was an order given by the Kremlin to take the Luhansk region by last Sunday. They did it by this Sunday, so a week later than they expected to. So they poured everything into this. We understand that from one military analyst here, who's quite well respected, that 60%, perhaps up to that amount of the Russians who are on this in a very vast front line, Anil, stretches from Kharkiv in the north, 800 kilometers to Kherson in the south. 60% of them concentrated on trying to just capture this one oblast in these two cities, Lysychansk and Severodonetsk. And are the Russians on the roll through here? Well, we just don't know. We just don't know what the levels of attrition. We don't know the casualty figures. We don't know how many tanks or weapons are destroyed. We just have no idea about the Russian supply lines. But we do know that the Ukrainians yesterday disrupted and destroyed 4 what they say are Russian ammunition sites, trying to disrupt the supplies, the flow of weapons and artillery into that region.
And Kieran, you mentioned Lysychansk. Tell us what you're hearing from that city. We know Russian forces captured that city on Sunday. People are now leaving shelters after taking cover for so many days. I suppose they're seeing the devastation for themselves up close now.
well, of the citizens that are left, we understand that, in the city of Lysychansk itself, there was 10% of the population left. Many of them, are the disadvantaged, the old, the elderly, the poor, those just who don't have the means or don't have family members, maybe here in the western part of Ukraine where it's a little bit safer to come and stay with. Now, there's some amazing footage that has appeared, and very heart-rendering, actually, if you think about it, on Russian state television, including drone footage where you see the drones flying over the entire devastation. There's been this scorched earth policy by the Russians. They've destroyed 90% of the infrastructure in this city and its city of Severodonetsk on the other side of the river, its sister city. You must wonder what those citizens are going to do now. Now, we did see in those pictures some women coming up from the shelters. They were welcoming the Russian soldiers. They were saying, thank God, we were waiting for you to come. But, there are of course Russian speakers who are pro-Russian and sympathetic to the Russians, and we're waiting for them. But, most of the people have left that city. And Mariupol really is our template. This is a city of 500,000 people.
Now that's an update on the crisis in Ukraine. Still ahead here on Daybreak, gunmen attacked the Kuje Medium Detention Facility in Nigeria's capital, Abuja. Stay with us.
I just want flex, don't need stress in my life. Avoid the yawa, I no want queue for the bank. Sharp, I don't open an account. Digital bank, we get the power, now vault. I pay my bills easily, I'm running things like a boss. Collect a loan with no collateral. Vault is the way. Vault is the answer. From Polaris Bank. Vault is the answer. Vault is the way.
Take control. Download Vault by Polaris Bank. That's VULTE. Visit the Google Play Store or Apple Store now. Vault is available to Polaris and non-Polaris Bank customers. Vault by Polaris Bank.
You're watching Daybreak on Arise News. Now, the US Vice President has made an unscheduled visit to the city of Highland Park a day after a gunman opened fire at a 4th of July parade, killing 7 and wounding dozens. Kamala Harris was accompanied by her husband, Doug Emhoff, met with the city's leaders and first responders and addressed the community. Before this visit, Harris denounced the attack and renewed a call for a ban on assault weapons. She made the comment in Chicago, just a few kilometers from the scene of the attack.
I bring you condolences from President Joe Biden and from our country. So sorry for what you all have experienced and the pain, the suffering. This should never have happened. We talk about it being senseless. It is senseless. It is absolutely senseless. This person will be brought to justice, but it's not going to undo what happened. And we're here for you, and we stand with you. And of course, as we always say, because it is true, our prayers are with you. The president and I and our administration have put all of the resources, and we'll continue to put all the resources that the mayor and the chief and others need in terms of the federal assistance. So the FBI and the ATF are here, all agreeing that we got to be smarter as a country in terms of who has access to what, and in particular assault.
The suspect accused of carrying out Monday's mass shooting near Chicago is being charged with 7 counts of first-degree murder. The Lake County State's attorney says dozens of more charges will be brought against the 21-year-old Robert Crimo. He is accused of killing 7 people after firing dozens of shots into a July 4 parade crowd. Police said they believe Crimo pre-planned the attack for weeks and legally bought 2 high-powered rifles and 3 other weapons, despite authorities being called to his home twice in 2019 after he threatened suicide and violence.
The Lake County State's Attorney's Office has charged Robert Crimo III with 7 counts of first-degree murder for the killing spree that he has unleashed against our community. These are just the first of many charges that will be filed against Mr. Crimo. I want to emphasize that. There will be more charges. We anticipate dozens of more charges centering around each of the victims. Psychological victims, physical victims, attempt murder charges, aggravated discharge charges, aggravated battery charges. There will be dozens of more charges against Mr. Crimo. But these 7 counts of first-degree murder will lead to a mandatory life sentence should he be convicted, without the possibility of parole. At the Lake County Courthouse, we will ask a judge to hold Mr. Crimo without the possibility of bail.
Well, for more on the aftermath of the shooting, my colleague Charlson Yagulu turned to our international correspondent Faith Orr, who is in New York.
We have heard from police today a couple of times, actually. They have named all of the victims, and 2 of the victims we know now were a married couple. After the shooting, a 2-year-old boy was seen wandering around on his own, and we now know that both of his parents were actually killed in the shooting. Kevin and Irina McCarthy, he was 37, she was 35. The young boy, Aidan, he is now going to be looked after by his grandparents, and a GoFundMe has been set up to help them raise him. Now that is just, the amount of money is just piling into that by the second. The last time I checked, just before speaking to you, it was sitting at $426,000 for that little boy. But of course, those are just 2 of the victims. There are another 5. We know that Nicholas Toledo, he was 78. He was, he was visiting, he was a Mexican national. He was there visiting his family. We also know that Jackie Sundheim, she was one of the victims. She was a former preschool teacher, now working at a local synagogue, who has been described as one of the kindest people you could ever meet. So we're getting much more details about the victims as well as about the suspects there. And we also heard from a doctor who was at the scene, who rushed towards the victims. He described the injuries as like something you would see on a battlefield. He said this was like victims of war, not victims in a parade in a city. You know, he said some of it was so horrific, it was simply unspeakable.
Well, those details that you just gave us, really heart-rending stuff, I have to say. I mean, how much does this call into question so many aspects of America?
Well, one of the major things about this is that the gun that the suspect, Robert Crimo, 21 years old, he used a legal weapon. He'd purchased it legally. It was a high-powered rifle, and it wasn't the only one that he owned. He had 5 weapons in total, police said. And not just that, but they had previously had contact with him. So they'd actually been called to his house twice. Once was when he threatened to commit suicide, and another was when he threatened to kill everyone in his home. He had a collection of knives which they confiscated, but at no point did they arrest him. Now, obviously, when he threatened to commit suicide, that's not a reason to arrest someone. But there are questions being asked over why more action wasn't taken when he threatened to kill his entire family, why that didn't sort of flag him up, maybe, spark some of those red flag laws. Why didn't he have his weapons taken off of him? The reason that they tracked him down was because he left the gun behind on that rooftop. It was legally purchased, it was registered to him, it was registered to his address, and that was how they managed to identify him. Once they'd identified him, some of the police officers actually knew what he looked like. because they'd had contact with him. They eventually tracked him down a number of hours after the shooting. He did try and flee to start with, but obviously they did manage to arrest him. Now, we were supposed to hear about the charges today. We haven't heard yet. It does seem that the investigation is still very much underway, but police say those charges will be filed soon.
And Faith, we're more than halfway through 2022, and by one count, there have been more than 300 mass shootings in the US. I mean, surely this must have an impact on everyone who lives there, especially young people who are having to do active shooter drills in their schools.
Exactly. In fact, some of the most heartbreaking details that came out of yesterday's shooting, one witness to the shooting, his young son turned to him afterwards and asked him whether every July 4th parade was going to have a shooting. I mean, just for that even to occur to a child, for this to become so normalized. We also know that some of the children reacted much quicker than the adults because they'd had active shooter training. So they threw themselves to the ground, they sought shelter while the adults were still wondering what was happening. And again, just for this to be a country that even has to train children in these drills is quite remarkable. These people that have to live with this. Again, that doctor at the scene, he says now, he believes people need to change their behaviour because he says he's not going to go to any parades, he's not going to go to any sports events. People are scared to send their children to nursery, to send their children to school. And some people will go on with life as normal, but others are saying now that going to these sort of large-scale events simply isn't worth the risk because people can buy these military-type weapons and use them to do whatever they want to do with them. They can kill people, they can threaten people. These weapons that are effectively weapons of war are on the streets of America, and people are afraid.
Rise international correspondent Faith Orr in New York. Now to Denmark, where Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen has led a vigil commemorating the victims of a deadly shooting at a shopping mall near Copenhagen. 3 people were killed and 4 others were hospitalized in an attack on Sunday at the Fields shopping center located on the outskirts of the Danish capital. Frederik, Crown Prince of Denmark, and Prince Christian were among those listening in the crowd to Frederiksen's speech. Authorities say a 22-year-old Danish man who's in custody apparently selected people to shoot at random. Neither the gunman nor the victims can be named under a court order.
All of Denmark is with you. We mourn with you and we share your pain.
Just first of all, just to support, just being here, support for those who have lost their families, and in that way show our condolences and to support in any kind. We could see that the people reaction and the panic was too big, so we could see something really big is happening. So when we found out, we were in shock. We couldn't believe it.
I mean, we live here.
We live here just close to Fields, and it's just like the most extremely friendly.
Protesters have continued to rally outside a government building in Skopje against the French proposal aimed at solving North Macedonia's dispute with Bulgaria. Police were called in as things started to turn violent. Dozens of officers have been injured and several protesters have been arrested. Protests erupted in the North Macedonia capital last week after French President Emmanuel Macron announced a controversial proposal that the country formally recognized that its language has Bulgarian roots. The dispute has been blocking North Macedonia's membership talks with the European Union.
Well, thanks for staying with us. Daybreak returns in a moment with the latest news updates out of Africa.
We started our journey over 7 years ago, connecting travelers to their favorite destinations. Since then, we've revolutionized how we want our passengers to feel while flying. That is why we've introduced our brand new Embraer 195-E2 aircraft. We are on a mission to add new destinations to our ever-increasing fleet. Our Boeing 777 will take you on an international journey. Mumbai, Guangzhou, London. Johannesburg. And now, EFIS is adding a new destination, Dubai.
If you're gonna fly, then you should fly with us on Air Peace.
Air Peace flies you from all our domestic routes to Dubai from Lagos at no additional cost.
On Air Peace.
Is the greatest threat the lawyers, the judges, the politicians?
MKO. Victoria. Adiola.
Stand back from me, please. Bring it down.
We're right at the premises of a vehicle inspection office.
And you can see cars being burnt, buildings raised.
You can see the smoke, the fire, the way it is going on.
The level of poverty is almost unimaginable.
The Morning Show. We never stop talking about the things that matter to you.
Quiet on set, please. We're going live in 3, 2, 1.
Thanks for staying with us. If you're just joining, it's daybreak and it's time for the top stories out of Africa. Now, Algeria has celebrated 60 years of independence from France with nationwide ceremonies, a pardon of 14,000 prisoners, and its first military parade in decades. Opposition figures and pro-democracy activists called the elaborate event an effort to distract attention from the country's economic and political troubles. The events mark the country's official declaration of independence on July the 5th, 1962, after a brutal 7-year war that ended 132 years of colonial rule. The war, which Algerian officials say killed some 1.5 million people, remains a point of tension in relations between Algeria and France.
إذا دارت رحاها تحت قيادة المقدم قيصر برامي.
Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed has met Sudan's strongman General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan in Nairobi on the sidelines of the IGAD summit, days after a new border incident between the two countries. Last month, the Sudanese army led by General Burhan, who has been in power in Sudan since a coup in October 2021, accused the Ethiopian army of executing 7 of its soldiers and a civilian captured in Sudanese territory in the disputed border area of Al-Fashaga. Ethiopian authorities denied this, accusing the Sudanese forces of having entered Ethiopian territory and provoking a clash with a local militia.
You know, we have a lot of trouble in our region, due to several factors, such as terrorism, extremism, cross-border crime, illegal immigration, human trafficking, and the proliferation of illegal weapons, and all of those threats have a big impact on social and security situations. It's my duty, as the president of the session between Burhan and Abiy, to affirm that our discussions in the closed-door meeting today are strictly linked to the IGAD principles, which are based on the equality of sovereignty between all the countries and the non-interference in the internal affairs of the member states.
Well, as the war in Ukraine continues, causing disruption in global food supplies and aid deliveries, families in Somalia have been struggling to feed themselves while the drought ravages a large part of the country. Despite the current drought being described as the worst in decades, barely any humanitarian aid has arrived. People have been struggling to move from their drought-stricken rural homes in search of better survival prospects in makeshift camps on the outskirts of Mogadishu.
I am among the people who have been displaced by the drought. I am currently living in the Hamajadid neighborhood in Mogadishu. We receive a very small amount of food from here, but it is insufficient to support our families for at least a month. However, I am taking some small biscuits and porridge to my home to feed my children.
The burden of food shortages is directly related to the fact that the world has turned its back on Somalia to focus on Ukraine. Most of the aid to Somalia came from the West, but now their attention and aid has been diverted to Ukraine. This is of great concern.
The United Nations says it will be needing $68.4 million urgently to tackle food and nutrition and insecurity for millions of people in the Central African Republic. The UN World Food Programme says a sharp increase in essential goods in the country linked to the war in Ukraine will likely have a devastating impact on the already humanitarian situation there in the coming weeks. Thompson Ferry, WFP spokesperson, warns that some 2.2 million people are already acutely food insecure in the country.
We anticipate a sharp increase in commodity prices starting from August 2022. We expect a 30% increase in rice, a 67% increase for the price of wheat flour, and a staggering 70% increase in the price of vegetable oil.
Here in Nigeria, security agencies have repelled an attack by unknown gunmen on the Kuje medium security prison in the capital, Abuja. Well, according to residents within the area surrounding the prison, the assailants invaded the facility around 10 p.m. on Tuesday using explosive devices. The first went off around 10:25 p.m. It was followed by 2 more explosions and sporadic gunshots. The attack comes days after a security report alerting prison officials of possible attacks on the facility. It also comes less than 12 hours after terrorists ambushed President Muhammadu Buhari's advance team convoy near Katsina State, northwest.